What is going on, everyone? It's LFC Transfer Room here, and we are back again, but not unpopular opinions today. No, today we're going to talk about lactate tests, we're going to talk about Henderson, we're going to talk about Levi Colwill, and pretty much anything else that you guys bring up in the chat. So if you have got questions for us, put them in the chat. We will get to them towards the end. We won't do them immediately, but if you have got something to ask, please do. If you've seen some news or anything like that, we can tell you based on the LFC Transfer Room sources what we think and how legitimate it is. But today I am joined by Steven, Drew, and Kev. You're right, Kev.
I'm all right, James. You're all good.
I'm good, yeah, mate. I'm good. I like the Virgil van Dijk shirt.
Yeah, not bad. Hat, scarf, or a badge. Place to go for your t-shirt.
Drew, how are you doing, sir? It's been a while. It's not been that long, actually. It's been a little while.
It's good to see you, James. I'm doing good. Excited for preseason around the corner, and I'm going to see Mission Impossible tonight, or Mission Probable, as you saw.
Mission Improbable. It's just the worst name for it. Anyway, sorry, we're talking about how bad the franchise name Mission Impossible is, because obviously, if it's happened this many times, it's not impossible.
It's just probably probable.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound as good, does it?
No, there's not many buzzwords to it, unfortunately.
Mission quite difficult, Stephen. Trying to sell Henderson to Saudi Arabia. Do you think that's mission improbable?
I reckon Tom Cruise could get it done, no problem.
And how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm doing very good. Happy to be here with you lovely gentlemen. Happy to be talking Liverpool. Happy to be moments away from pre-season starting. And yeah, I'm not going to see Mission Impossible. I'm going to see Barbie. So that's what I'm waiting for.
Don't blame you.
No words. Oh yeah, I'm speechless for once.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd do a Liverpool stream about Barbie.
Yeah, sure, why not? Like,
we're gonna start by talking about Henderson. Now, obviously, it seems like he's not joining Saudi, but then there's obviously rumours where if a £10 million bid comes in, then we would listen to it and stuff like that. And then I was watching all the preseason, training and stuff like that. I tell you what, the guy's come back more ripped than Salah almost. And a dodgy haircut, but more ripped than Salah. And he got far in the lactate test and stuff like that. It looks like he's really taking it seriously this year. So it kind of seems like it would be a wrong idea to just put all that effort in at post-season, come back and go, do you know what, I'm just going to take a payday. What do you think, Kev?
I totally agree. I don't see the point in getting yourself ripped, doing like a Rocky montage while you're away, on holiday, to come back and to just turn around and go, oh yeah, we'll blow the Euro 24s next year and I'm just going to go to Saudi and retire. It sounds too daft for me. There's I question why you would get yourself so ripped and ready if that was the opportunity that you were looking for. It baffles me that he'd even go. But at the end of the day, if a price comes in, and everyone has the price, if something comes in over a ridiculous amount, 15, 20 mil, you've got to listen to it. Unfortunately, you've got to listen to it. And, if that means we can get an alternative in, then so be it. But for me, it doesn't make sense. I think he's still got a bit of his England career left. There's a Euros around the corner. I think he's more evidently trying to get into that team for me. So it's one of them. We'll find out in 48 hours, by the way. So,
So they say, but I mean, my biggest issue with it, Drew, is people saying 10 million might be enough. I'll tell you what, it's not enough to replace him.
No, like I was saying like 30 million. Yeah, I know Saudi Arabia transfer fees haven't been excessive, but he's on, what has he got, 2 more years on his contract now? Early 30s. It seems like a fair estimate would be at least like 20-25 million. I don't see him going. Just like Kev said, you don't do all that training, preparing for the Saudi League. Definitely England on the cards. And I think just the competition of the midfielders that we brought in, like he's going to know that there's going to be competition for his place this year. He's not a guaranteed starter. And maybe getting back to what he did best, which was have energy and legs on the pitch, because we're in dire need of that. And if he can get his fitness levels up to where he can be running around the pitch, doing what he does best, just being a nuisance and churning the ball over, he could feature in a good role for us. He could be those legs that come on, that kind of James Milner last 30 minutes of the game, just hitting hard like a tired team at the end of the game. I think there's a role for him. We've talked about his leadership. Like, I don't think he necessarily has to be the biggest leader on the pitch, as far as, he's not going to be the best player on the pitch, but he does everything behind the scenes. We've talked about how he's been welcoming to so many players. So many players speak highly of him. Coaches speak highly of him. So that's kind of stuff that I think as fans, you're not going to see unless you're tuned into those behind the scenes or the interviews. You're just going to see his performances on the pitch. And I'm sure he'll be the first one to say that they haven't been the best the past season, but it looks like he's taking that seriously, the competition that's coming in, and he wants to play for Liverpool. So that all bodes well for good competition moving forward. And for me, we need fit midfielders who can run and create. And I don't know how much Jordan Henderson will be contributing in the final third, but we know he has it in his locker to find a good pass. He, in the past, has had the legs, and if he's taking it seriously, I'm down for him to stay and see what he can contribute.
Now, Stephen, I'm thinking said here that James Pearce has confirmed that the Henderson isn't going, but, and I'll say but, both Neil Johns and James Pearce have been downgraded in LFC transfer gradings because their knowledge of Liverpool transfers seems to be as far away as possible nowadays. They seem to be really distant from the club. I think probably David Ornstein and Fabrizio are the two strongest, and then there's some international ones who really know about their leagues and what's going on. Do you think James Pearce is just having a tactical guess?
I mean, it's the equivalent of a tap-in opinion, because realistically, there's been interest there for him for months. You have a 50-50 shot, and realistically, if you turn around to be wrong, it's not exactly the biggest impact of it. So he could both be right and both be wrong. It's we're not to know. Personally, I don't think, as Kevin Drew pointed out, I don't think Jordan Henderson's going to get himself into that level of shape and be able to run that well in the lactate test, only to go and botch his chances at the Euros next year and go and play in Saudi for a fat paycheck. I said it before on earlier streams out that the signing of these new midfielders that can run, and we'll obviously touch on it later on in some pre-season talk, signing midfielders that have legs on them. I used the analogy at the time of the team that I support in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers, that they had 3 different quarterbacks at a time. And anybody that's played in a competitive sport, whether professionally or otherwise, seeing somebody gunning for your spot is going to light a fire under you if you have that competitive mentality. And I said that if he didn't have that, I didn't want him. We should sell him. But obviously he's shown he does have it, so I don't necessarily have a problem with keeping him there. Both for his on and off the pitch leadership roles, as Drew was saying, he's greeted an awful lot of new guys that have come in, greeted everybody that's come back, some guys that have come off loan and everything, making it somewhat a homely environment, which is very good, and it's great to get team chemistry going that way immediately. And from watching the likes of the lactate test and the pre-season footage that's already been there, you can kind of see the teams gelling fairly quickly, fairly well, which is a great thing to have for the first bit of video that we're getting out. But at the same time, this is a business, and it has to be run as a business. As much as we like to say football is more than that, there is the business side of it. And if an offer came in for 20 or 30 million pounds for him, I think we'd be very, very, very silly not to actually take that very seriously. Because if we can get 30 million pounds for him, that's an Inacio release clause, nearly. That's 60 to 70% of a Lavia fee straight away. it takes an awful lot of burden off any future signings that we could get, and that's not including anybody else that decides to go out the door later on in the window. The likes of Kelleher, Costa, Simicas if he goes, Nat Phillips, Joe Gomez, Matip, any of those guys. It all does add up, and if you count your pennies, eventually you get a couple of pounds. Like,
now, some of you put some questions in, like how many players do you think we're going to sign and stuff like that, and I've starred them, I've saved them for the comments. We will come back to them towards the end of the stream. But one of the things that really struck me watching some of the pre-season stuff, Kev, is Henderson's your serious guy. He's there. He's like, oh, hi, everyone. And he's nice. He's welcoming everyone. But Robbo was everywhere. Like, Robbo was the life and soul of everything. Welcome everyone back, complimenting on how in shape they are, taking the mick out of the physios and everything. Like the guy is everywhere in the club, making everyone feel good about coming back, complimenting their haircuts, complimenting the physique, complimenting what they're doing. How important is it to have, yes, a serious side, but also someone that's just positive everywhere you go and it's just giving out good vibes?
It's relatively important. It's probably a role that Oxlade-Chamberlain done very well, that we don't necessarily used to see. He used to do all the lactate tests and would be there doing what Robbo's done. He's took that mantra up, and it's needed. It's needed in that environment. It can't all be serious. We've all played sports to a certain degree. I've played it to an okay, not to a great level, but you do need that banter in any kind of environment. There is the serious side of things, but there's also got to be the fun side to it as well. There's got to be that bit of taking it away, the edge away from it, so that it is like a family spirit, as Steve said quite rightly before. You need that family community. You are going to be in each other's pockets for the next 9 months, so you need to have those kind of people around you, whether we like them or not. It is imperative, and it's instilled in Klopp's kind of community wherever he goes, that you need those kind of players who are not necessarily Robbo's on a fringe, but one of those fringe players who can come in and do that kind of stuff, is willing to do that, take the pressure off of anyone else, provide a bit of banter, show that we are all caring, we all like having a laugh and a joke. It's required, and it goes a long way in building up that confidence and that belief in each other, that I think is imperative, and it's part of one of those leadership skills that you need, I think.
Now, Drew, I'm going to miss you for this question because I'm going to go straight to Stephen. And you'll see why when the question comes out. How weird is it that the positive vibes in our changing room is a Scotsman?
Well, coming from an Irishman, it's not the weirdest thing in the world. Do you know, Andy Robertson reminds me, and this might show my age a little bit. Do you remember the A-Team, the TV show back in the day? Murdoch from that, just an absolute psychopath, but a psychopath that would run into the ground for you and would go through hell and back for you. He is the kind of player that you love to have on your team and hate to play against. And him having that familial attitude in the locker room, joking, play acting, making light of things. You need that contrast from somebody that will be more serious, the likes of a Henderson that's very much all business, or the likes of anybody else that's of that mindset. You need multiple types of characters to be able to bounce off each other, all committed towards the one goal. And Robertson, thankfully, he's always kind of been like that, even way back when we were doing media years ago, like when they were doing the biscuits thing between himself and Milner, or sitting in the car thinking Trent was dating Dua Lipa and everything like that. He's the class clown, but when push comes to shove, he's going to be standing there on the front line with you. So I would very much say that he's a very integral part of how the inner cogs of that team work on a chemistry level.
And for $100,000 a week, which is what he's on
steal.
For one of the top 5 left backs in world football, is an absolute bargain as well.
Oh, steal, absolute steal. And the fact that he's happy taking that, whereas most people would be demanding to go to the likes of a PSG, a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, a Man City to get paid $200,000-300,000 a week. It shows that the money isn't a thing for him, and that's the kind of player you want, especially as in part of your engine of your defense. The kind of guy that will be on the pitch and he'd bite somebody's face off to get and scrape a couple of points. And that's the best way that I can describe him.
I mean, if you are new here, please like and subscribe to the channel, and hopefully Robbo won't bite anyone's face off, because we don't want to be in the media for one of our players biting again. But Drew, people are saying, oh, we're potentially going to need a left centre-back, a left-footed centre-back here. We've got Paul swirling around, left-footed centre-back, possibly switch to a back three. Is his starting place in jeopardy? And please answer me in the comments as well. What do you think about this? Why can't Robbo play as a left centre-back?
Might be too short. Full stop. I know Carragher talks about him, being too short. Yeah, Martinez, but not all the time. We beat Man U 7-0, and Martinez looked pretty terrible. Get a couple headers in there as well for goals. But I think we'd be taking away from Robertson's energy, like we're talking about, his ferocity on the pitch. He's backing up everyone on the pitch. I go back to that game, I think, where he really endeared himself to fans against Man City when he pressed entirely down the line all the way to Ederson, and the back line ran pretty much the full length of the pitch, pressing, forcing them back, and then nicked the ball off and got unfairly called for a foul. I think when you talk about Trent pushing up, I think that Robertson's kind of knowledge and an ability on defense, he's able to tuck in, and really I think has a better skill set in terms of knowing where to be on the pitch and knowing when to get back. So I think we'd lose a very very exciting and very valuable element of his game if we basically had him tucked back in as a left-sided center back in the back three.
Jen, as always, thank you always for the support. I know I put it on screen. Stephen was talking, so I didn't interrupt to say thank you very much. We appreciate it. Kev, what do you think? Do you think Robbo could left centre back it, or do you think, especially when you've got two big right, your right centre back in Canate and Virgil van Dijk, you've got two big ones, so you've got a little nippy ankle biter. That's not the worst trio in the world, is it?
It's not, but I agree with Drew. I wouldn't want him as a left centre back. If we have a left centre back, I want someone who's predominantly, that's his position, to play centre back. I'm not saying I'm against it, but you lose a lot of what is tenaciousness on the left hand side. That's usually required, and further up the field as well. I like him being, I predominantly play him as a left wing back. To be honest, if I'm doing anything with him, if we do revert to a three, but that's down to. But you lose a lot with Robbo if you just put him as a centre back, and I don't think it's in his game, or he can do that part of the game as well as what he does on the left hand side. He had a bad season last season, and I agree with a lot of people who will go, no, I don't see it, but he's still got a lot to offer, left back, and I think Rigo highlighted it in the comments, until someone comes in, those questions won't be asked until the pre-season starts, and it's part of that pre-season that we're going to find out, which I'm really intrigued about. Is, are we going to change our formation, and if so, what style of formation are we going to move to, and how versatile do these players have to be? And that's what's more intriguing me over the pre-season, as well as the youngsters that can come in. But for me, Robbo, no, I'm not having him as a left centre back. Sorry, I'd sooner have someone predominant there who can play for me. Sorry.
No, I get it. I think he can do like that Mascherano role where when Trent drops back, he can take forward with the ball. And I think they've got the nous to play it between them because they communicate so well. But I don't think he could be a tradition. Like, you couldn't play Robbo and Canate together. It would have to be as part of a three, otherwise it just wouldn't work.
I have an heart attack on the left-hand side when Timicus plays. If you do that to me, I will be dead.
I also think, Stephen, Robbo's very good at progressing with the ball at his feet. He drives forward. And why cut that out? Because, we've signed Szoboszlai. He's great at progressing forward with the ball and driving forward with the ball. But why cut it out and only have one direction when you could have Robbo and you could have Szoboszlai, and then you're creating multiple options? Why are we trying to always pin ourselves down to one person at one good thing? So there is a chance that we could still be playing 4-3-3 and just Trent plays a bit more of an inverted role, isn't there?
Yeah, I think that's genuinely the way it's going to go. And now there's so many different options that we can utilize in relation to how we line up going forward, how we line up going back. Like our lineup could very much turn into on the defensive side of it, if the two wingers drop back, it could very easily turn into a 4-5-1, and then going forward, it could very easily be 3 box and then another 3 up front. There's so many ways that we can go about it. Until somebody comes in and shows that they can outplay and outwork Andy Robertson, I don't think he ever even gets a glimpse of losing that starting spot, even as a left centre back. If he came in there, I genuinely don't think somebody should be able to come in and just take a spot away from him without having to outwork him. And I don't think that's possible. Even at the age of 28 that he is, I don't even think anybody of the age of 21 or 20 will be able to come in and outwork him at that spot. He's just that kind of a player. You do lose a bit in regards to height if you were to move him into the middle of the pitch. But when you have the twin towers either side of you in relation to Konate and Virgil van Dijk, you're perfect there. There's nothing to worry about. Going forward with the ball, he's fantastic. He drives up that left-hand side and covers every blade of grass on his third of the pitch and on his side of the pitch. I don't see anybody coming in and going in ahead of him.
Now we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the lactate test. You know, the James Milner Award, as Klopp said it on the training video, and it was done in groups today, Drew. So group 1, we saw Salah beat the likes of Henderson, Alexis McAllister. Who else was in it? Who was in that final round?
Jake Spaden? No.
No. Young right back.
Connor Bradley.
Connor Bradley made it to the second last round with those. And he tried to stay with it as much as he could. So, but Salah took it down. And then in the other one, Szoboszlai took it down with Diaz dying, like doing his full-on Paula Radcliffe nod. If anyone remembers that, it was just sort of the head going everywhere, trying to keep up with him on the final lap. One, it's great to see a midfielder, who's going to be a prime midfielder winning, and it's great to see that Salah is ready for the new season, because obviously we need him to be hitting the ground running, isn't it, Drew?
Yeah, it's no surprise there for me for Salah. You constantly see his post about working out, regardless of if it's in season or on break, like even holidays or international breaks or whatever have you. He's always in the gym working out. You can tell he takes a lot of pride in his body, and seems like that kind of Cristiano Ronaldo mentality of getting the most out of your body and training and living the lifestyle that allows you to have the most out of your career and play at the top level for the longest possible amount of time. And so I was never worried of Salah, hitting the beer and, hitting the beach and taking it off for a season. And I'm sure I think we touched on it a while back. I forget who specifically in the streams, but his post after the season seemed very genuine. And it wasn't just like the PR, just like, oh, we'll come back stronger next year kind of thing. It was like, this was not acceptable. Like, it seemed like he was truly, annoyed and disappointed with the season. And I think that reflects with how he comes back and his approach for this season. I don't think it's just the weightless words of we'll do better next year. He's putting in the work. You look at Henderson, another one, but like that last season was ultimately extremely disappointing, and it seems like the players are all behind putting in the work, doing the hard effort to come back out of the gates firing this season. Salah, completely expect that from him. Szoboszlai, I'm excited to see him young as well. I've been watching highlight videos of him pretty much every day. I remember seeing him in some games, Hungary, but the fact that he comes in and kind of bosses it on the lactate test says that he's got a lot of stamina. He's got a lot of legs. So that'll be exciting to see in the midfield. He's got a lot of creativity as well. And then Connor Bradley, I think, he was on loan to Bolton last year? Yeah. Was it Bolton? Yeah, and crushed it. What did they win the trophy for that league? Or one of the one of the domestic cups for them. Just played almost every single game. It's exciting to see, especially after we got Calvin Ramsey and his unfortunate injuries. I don't know. Connor Bradley might be looking at a spot in the team to, we'll certainly have the games this year, but I like seeing players who put in the work. And I think fitness is one of the most important things. Like, if you can have that stamina at the top of your game, you're just going to beat a player who's not trying as hard as you.
And I think it's a demonstration from the club by sending Calvin Ramsey on loan and Connor Bradley's still here. That, Connor Bradley, you've got your chance this year. Trent might be playing in midfield. Trent might get a few games here. You might get some game time. Be ready. And he looks to be fit and ready. Now, the other one that won the lactate test, which I haven't seen, but I'm reliably informed by Charlie, was Darwin Nunez, Kev. And before I get your opinion on that, if anyone knows Damo, everyone knows how he feels about FSG. He's very much FSG out. But
really,
he said, if we get 10,000 subscribers, so please subscribe to the channel, he will write a love poem for FSG and deliver it to John and deliver this love poem live on the stream. And every fibre of my being wants to see this.
I do.
Just so that whenever he complains about FSG, I can just put a little gif of the poem up there constantly. So if you are new here, please like and subscribe. Just you can unsubscribe straight after. Just as soon as he's done that poem and I've got that on him forever, I'll be happy. That's all I care about. But anyway, back to Nunez. Left wing, that type of energy, that type of engine, that type of consistency. Jota and Gakpo, maybe a false nine. People are talking about, we're expecting the 4-3-3 to some degree with position of Trent potentially changing. Nunez feels like he'd be good coming deep from the left. Obviously, he can attack from the front. What are you thinking? I mean, and it's good to see English as well. He's using English in a lot of his pre-season chats with things.
I'm made up of what I've seen so far of Nunez in pre-season. I like the videos I've seen him of understanding what's being told to him in one of the training sessions that he had and moving with the ball. I like the fact that he's got his head down and knuckled down, and it looks as though he's looked to doing and achieving something this season. Where he plays, do you play him? He automatically, I've said it loads of times, from when I see him play, he relatively likes coming from that left-hand side far too much. I would like him. The problem you've got is that you've got Diaz there, and if he plays alongside Diaz, he's over there. If Jota plays, he's always on that side as well. It's about us adapting to him. What's better for? I would like him to be I'd like him to predominantly be a number 9 for us. And I think it's in there for him to do that. But can you get that out of him? Because I think he prefers to play in that left channel far more than what he does through the middle. I'll be honest, I'll be starting Gakpo up front with possibly Diaz and with Salah up front and have him coming off the bench predominantly at first. But that may change. My mindset may change during pre-season, and I see how we play pre-season. There's still question marks about where his actual position is and who you're going to take out on that left-hand side predominantly is where the issue and the challenge is going to be. You're not going to get him playing on the right-hand side because that's Salah's. And in the middle, I would predominantly go with Gakpo as a number 9, be like in a 9, but have him at the top of that down, like a 3 behind, but with Nunez at the top of it. That's where I would predominantly like to see him play. The only issue I've got with that is that if you play like that, he will tendingly go through the gears, and if he's not finding the ball and is not doing well, he'll tend to go on that left hand side. He needs to understand how we play, and that's where it's intriguing what we're going to do this season, especially in pre-season. Our tactics are going to be the starter players we've got. We can be more flexible and more progressive with a 4-3-3, but is he going to be the main starter in that 4-3-3? That's where I would question that and say at the minute possibly not.
I mean, Stephen, it's good to see him win the lactate. It's good to he's worked. He's got his energy. He's in the right place now. There's a lot of what Kev says I agree with. It'd be great to see him as a 9. I think where Nunez really shines in comparison to Gakpo, and probably in comparison to Diaz, is counter-attack. Like, he just goes on the counter-attack. And I think there's a good chance we'll see him play against Chelsea because Chelsea are going to attack us. And there's a good chance we won't see Darwin play against teams who do a low block against us because we need Gakpo to link in Diaz and we need him to link in Salah. And then we probably need to bring Jota on to steal us a goal in the 95th minute because we can't seem to break down a low block no matter what we do. But for me, that's where I see Nunez. I see him on a counter, blitzing down the left while Salah blitzes down the right. And then when we've got them pinned in, he moves central, tries to win the ball in the air and score the goal. What are you seeing from Nunez in this pre-season so far? I know we've not seen any games yet, but just the training, the mentality, how more relaxed he looks.
I'm seeing a redemption year, to be perfectly honest with you. His English has come on tenfold. He's understanding things an awful lot better. I have a feeling that last season, an awful lot of his miscues and his errors, tenacity and physicality and running yourself into the ground can only get you so far when there's a language barrier, unfortunately. And I think that hindered him more than people will let on. With regards to how he is now, you can really see that he's able to understand more. He's able to even converse more. And there's even a small bit of an accent coming in. I heard some phrases that he was saying, and I was like, there's definitely Scouse coming in there. And so the way I look at it is the man is 23. He's got a long way to go yet in his career. Not that he's a long way to go as a player. He's a fantastic player. He's big, strong, physical, fast. He can outpace most centre backs at will. He can cause havoc. That's one of the reasons why I loved watching him last season. You didn't know if he was going to miss an absolute sitter or if he was going to score an absolute worldie like he did against Real Madrid with just an audacious backheel on a cross into the box. That's almost unheard of to do in your first Champions League game against Real Madrid for Liverpool. I think it's going to be a redemption story for him. I think he's going to absolutely ball out. I think he's going to make a lot of people apologize for stuff they've said about him in the past. And I can do nothing but root for him. You know, when you watch a player and you can't really explain it, but you just love watching them play. You don't know what it is. You can't put your finger on it, but you just love sitting there and watching them cause absolute havoc. And it's beautiful to watch. I genuinely think he's on a comeback here. And realistically, when you look at it, he didn't necessarily have that all of a bad of a year last year with nearly 20 goals in all competitions. It's not outrageous to say he won't double it. I think he will if he gets any sort of a footing under him, especially with the communication side of things. I would very much like to see Gakpo play sort of behind him in a sort of a central attack.
Here.
Yeah, something like that with Nunez at right up in front, like as a lone striker, almost like a Haaland, and let like Gakpo sit maybe 15, 20 yards behind him and feed the front three, because if we got Gakpo maybe to replace Bobby, and what Bobby did was he linked the front three up. There's nothing to say, and what Nunez does well is he gets in behind the two centre-backs, takes a ball from midfield. So the likes of a McAllister or Szoboszlai or even now Trent playing the ball from midfield can very easily launch it over the top. It was a beautiful goal that Nunez had last season where Trent just popped it over the top of the two centre-backs and Nunez took it down one touch, volleyed, and it was a goal. So I think you're going to see an awful lot more of that, of Nunez putting the fear of God into all the centre-backs in the league with just how fast and how quick he is and how fast he can get a shot off. I think it's going to be very much a rotation. It'll depend on the team that we're playing, as you said, James. But I do think Darwin's going to get an awful lot more opportunities this season, and I do think he's going to capitalise on an awful lot more of them. And we're going to see a Suarez-esque second season, the same as he had with Benfica after his second season. He didn't necessarily score much or do much in his first season with Benfica, but then he exploded in his second season. Suarez had the same with us when he landed first. Had a by his standards, mediocre season to begin with, and then exploded onto the scene his second season. I think a lot of these players that come over from the foreign-speaking languages, such as the South American teams, they just need a little bit of time to get into it now. I think Diaz was a bit of an anomaly in that he hit the ground running straight away. But I'm not overly concerned about him. I think he's going to hit the ground running, and I think he's going to absolutely light the league on fire.
I agree. I think it's a lot easier to hit the ground running when you've got Mane and Salah absolutely ripping things apart and everyone's panicking and running over to them and leaving you all this space. You're like, oh, this is quite nice. But we're going to start to move into some of the sort of the transfer rumours, things that we've heard. If there is a rumour that you've heard, put it, and you want us to chat about it, put it in the chat. We are going to get to those as well. And whilst you are here, please like and subscribe to the channel. I want to hear Damo do a love poem to John W. Henry. It would make my 2023 because it would be hilarious. He has so much negative, so many tweets complaining. It's brilliant. Now, the first one that we've been looking at is Khephren Thuram is available for 50 million euros, so about 45 million pounds, Drew. Thomas Tuchel and Dortmund are interested. Bayern Munich are interested. Obviously, we've been linked and been interested for a while. But it seems that we're not as interested as we were. I think we've gone with the Szoboszlai signing. I think he probably gave us some really positive feedback really quickly that I want this to happen. Do you think we're in for him, or do you think it's Lavia or nobody?
I would like to see us in for Thuram. I still think he's the profile of player that we'd absolutely benefit from. His physicality, his ability to carry the ball, his box-to-box abilities, like everything is screaming out for what we need in the midfield. And I also think it's one of the ones where if you're thinking long-term, like Thiago and Henderson don't have that many more years. Thiago could possibly leave this summer. His contract's up in a year anyway. Henderson, 2 years. I think if you're looking for building the future of the midfield, Thuram is an ideal fit. We'll see if Bajcetic steps up. I have full confidence in Fabinho to continue at top level next season. I think even Henderson can put a shift in at that 6 role if necessary. So I think we have the cover for that 6 position in the midfield. But Thuram's just ability and his profile in the midfield would be absolutely phenomenal for Liverpool. And I really do hope that we go in for him, although I'm going to pull down my expectations a bit after hearing a lot about his ridiculous demands for wages and signing on fees, etc. So I don't know if that fits the profile of FSG and what Klopp would want if a player is money oriented. But as far as the player himself, I think he'd be a perfect fit for us. I think it's exactly what we need in the midfield.
Now, Paul's put in the comments here, Kev, we've seen conflicting amounts for Thuram transfer fees from 30 to 50 million. One of the higher rated sources, not like a holy grail source, is where we've got the 50 million pound from, and that was tweeted today. So that's why we're saying the 50 million euros, 45 million pounds. And obviously we know that these deals can get structured in a multitude of different ways and different amounts of money and payments spread over 5 years and all this different, once you score a goal with your left foot, you pay us £2 million and all those different permutations. But you've got Thuram who's available. Obviously, we're hearing quite a lot of noise that we really are pushing for Colwill, and that'll probably only happen for a really expensive deal, which we're open to, but the player needs to push it. If you're playing Monopoly money, which in essence we always are because most of us can't imagine this type of thing, where are you putting your hotel first before you try and put on your second hotel? You go in Colwill before you go for Thuram, or you go, do you know what? I've just landed on it. I've landed on Old Kent Road. It's getting a hotel and be done with it.
I'll be honest, I don't think anyone knows who's gonna be through the door next. And I think that's where the issue is, and that's where the conflicting things come in for me. I've mentioned before, there's probably a list of players, and we're probably going to go through them about 3 or 4 times during this season. I think what may change things is what happens with Mbappe. And if he goes to Real Madrid, then that unlocks the likes of Valverde, possibly, and Tchouaméni, So are Liverpool trying to play the cards close to the chest and wait to see what happens with the Mbappe thing? Because that is going to have a domino effect within football, and then waiting to see what the counter move will be after that. I think there's a plan B and a plan C. I think if we do go in for Colwill, that's going to take a bit of time, because that's going to, as you quite rightly say, it's going to take him to force that deal and force that transfer from Chelsea. But that's not going to make it easy. It goes back to what Klopp said. You'd like everyone in, but some are going to take 6 to 8 weeks possibly and go to the end of the window. I can see Colwill going to the end of the window, if not January, if possible, because of the way Chelsea are going to be playing hardball and how much they want. And it all comes down to his actual conversation with Pochettino for me. And if he then makes it clear, and then hopefully he can come in. But I wouldn't be putting my hotel on anything as of yet, because I could turn around and say we'll get Colwill in next, but you could quite easily see either Lavia or another midfielder come in. I think there's an element of trying to play devil's advocates of who is going to be in. So what we'll do is we'll mention all the midfielders we have been linked with, and then wait and say, oh yeah, well, there you go. I told you we'll get them in. I wouldn't be putting anything on it at the minute. I'd say we'll be bringing someone in, but what position will be? I'm not gonna do what the journalists are doing at the minute, trying to play, a game with the fans or clickbait as to who's going to be next. For me, it could be any of them, and it'll be down to certain things that change, that triggers that for me. But I wouldn't be surprised if the elements of what's happening with Mbappe and what happens with Real Madrid is playing a course to it as well, because that opens, as I've said, the options of probably an upgrade on a few players. But I'd be happy if Thuram came in myself personally, do you know what I mean? But who knows, mate? Who knows? Sorry, I'm just sitting on the fence, just walking along the fence for you. Sorry.
Professional fence sitter, aren't you? I'll tell you who's not a professional fence sitter. Stephen, are we getting Thuram or are we getting Lavia?
To be, I wouldn't put, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't put my money.
Oh, come on!
I can tell you who I'd like in. It all depends, really, because it depends, and it's not so much me sitting on the fence, but more so it depends on what way Klopp wants to go forward. Because the signing of McAllister and Szoboszlai indicate a very much attacking formation going forward. Now, is he moving away from the need for a centre defensive midfielder, and is he looking for somebody that can progress the ball up as a very much just smack in the middle centre midfielder, sit in the centre circle kind of a guy? Then Thuram is perfect for that. If they're moving away from the need for the Fabinho role that's there, not that Fabinho would go or anything like that, but removing the CDM and just having a flat 3 midfield, or even 2 advanced midfielders in McAllister and Szoboszlai, and then Thuram sitting in the middle in the centre circle to progress the ball, then yeah, Thuram would be the better option. But then conversely to that, if we're sticking with the CDM role, I'd rather Lavia. So it as Kev was saying, Liverpool are a team that very much play their cards close to their chest. We don't know anything until it's literally signed. The Szoboszlai signing is an example of that. All of a sudden, in the space of 72 hours, we were not in for him, and he was signed. So with that being said, I think they're in for another midfielder and another centre-back. When and who comes in is anybody's best guess. Who I'd like to come in would be Lavia, purely for the experience and age gap between Fabinho and Stefan. And if Stefan is going to move over to that 8 role going forward, and you're going to need somebody there as an understudy or a protege to move, that when Fabinho moves on in the next couple of years, that he's able to step into that seamlessly. Now, if you're just going forward and you're saying, let's go all out and attack, Thuram would be the better option in that. It really all depends on what way Klopp wants to set this team up going forward. And I think preseason is going to show, the preseason games are going to show us an awful lot of that and give us more of a clear indication of the type of player that he's going to be more looking for than anything. For the price, 50 million euro, it's not all that expensive. It's the same as, it's a little bit less than what Lavia is being asked for. I think that will come down. As Kev was saying, with the likes of the Mbappe transfer, it'll all depend on who goes where, it's all up in the air at the moment, and nobody knows more than anybody else. And I have a feeling an awful lot of journalists are just repeddling the same stuff to get clicks and keep engagement going. But Liverpool are a team that plays their cards very close to their chest, and we won't know until it's probably already done. There's definitely talks amongst a number of different players and prospects going on behind the scenes, and until it comes out of the likes of Ornstein's or Fabrizio Romano's Twitter, I won't believe any of it.
Now we're going to move on to the questions that we've started in this, that I've started in the chat, and I'll bring them up and pass them on to each of you. One of the things, and just because it's Rigo, I'm gonna pull this out. So if we signed 3 midfielders and a defender, everyone was saying it was a 10 out of 10 window. It'd be absolutely perfect, which is just one more midfielder and one more defender, and suddenly we need 3. And this is what always happens with us as Liverpool fans. Whatever happens, we'll always want one more. We always want just one more signing, one more player. But and I'm picking on Rigo because, why not? So right, let's go to some of these questions. And Drew, I'm gonna start with you. And we've got this from Ian, which is, unless players leave, I can't see any more incomings. Now, again, if you've got strong feelings about this, please put it in the chat. If you are new here, please like and subscribe. I want Damo to make a poem about how much he loves John Henry. But what do you think about this? Unless players leave, you can't see any more incoming. Do you think that's right?
No, I don't think so, especially because of how the Szoboszlai deal was done, with the third party putting up the money for that and us taking a loan on that. So that doesn't really count for this year's transfer kitty. I think it comes down to who Jurgen Klopp wants, who's available, and who's making the right demands. So I could see us getting another midfielder, center back as well. Like the fact that we're still like touting Colwill shows that we wouldn't be doing that if we weren't going to make another signing or didn't have the money to make another signing. I think it just comes down to if it's the right player, if it's the right place, etc. Stuff that Liverpool fans hate to hear about FSG. But when you start to look at the kind of rumors around, like apparently we were done after we signed McAllister. I remember reading that from a few journalists, and then
it's just an easy article, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's I think it's playing like hype on emotions. Liverpool fans, there's been a lot of frustration in the past over transfers, but I think that FSG, I'm curious to do a debate on this channel at some point about FSG, because I definitely think they deserve more praise than they get. I don't think they've done enough at times, but when you look down to it, what they've built up with the club, I think they've done a great job. They obviously could have done more, but I don't think we're in that situation now where it's the case where we need to sell to buy. I think the Szoboszlai signing is the exact example of why, because they became, for me, that was kind of like the Gakpo opportunity signing, where you see a player that you really want and it wasn't in the plans, but you had to get him because he was available. And I think that's why they went to the outsourced third party. I know the Liverpool Transfer Room did a podcast with Mo Shatra who explains that more in depth, but he explains how that doesn't take away from our transfer kit this window. And I think I'm very curious, Kev and Steven touched on it with the Real Madrid and Mbappe situation, what kind of opportunities that opens up. And I think that's why we're seeing the sort of hesitancy when Klopp's like, I want the players in before the transfer window. It's like, well, now that our top target last year was at Tchouaméni, might be available, but it might not be before the preseason starts. But I think if we get in like a Tchouaméni and a center back, I couldn't see anybody having a right to complain for Liverpool's transfer window if that's the case.
Now, Kev, I've got a question here from Paul. Now, Drew will say that he asked that, not Drew. Rigo will say he asked this in the chat, and there's a reason we don't take Rigo seriously in the chat. When our fans of the channel ask us a question, we take that seriously. It's just because it's Rigo. Curtis Jones played the number 6 for the under-21s. Could we give him a look in the Fabinho understudy? He played that sort of deep-lying playmaker. He linked it right-hand side of midfield as well, who spent a lot of time there. There is a good chance against teams with a low block having someone like Curtis doing playmaking with Trent and finding a lot of space could work out quite well for us. So is a number 6 really our number 1 priority when we've got a different approach to playing that? Because you've got Bajcetic, potentially Curtis and Fab.
No, there are opportunities, but if you look at this season, this is probably the first time that you're going to be able to say around to young players and say, you're going to play in Europe this season. You can't do that with the Champions League. You can do that with the Europa League. We have got 3 outs of getting into the Champions League next season. 1 through the league, 1 through coefficients, and 1 by winning the Europa. So we have a lot of outs. Primarily, you want to do that through the league basis. This gives a golden opportunity. You look at how many games we play. If you include the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup, we could be playing potentially 29 games till the end of December. 27 if we get beat in the 3rd round of the Cup. This is a golden opportunity to see the versatility of players. Now, what Jones has done with the under-21s is great, and I think Lee Carsley deserves a great round of applause for what he's done with the England under-21 setup. Gladly he's not at Everton, so he's doing a great job. So for me, what he's done with Jones is he's shown the versatility of him. You look at what he done for us last season. He played rather well not in the 6, but more in an 8 or a 10. And he played well, and he's got that versatility about him. It looks as though he's got one thing that's been missing for me, which is confidence. He's got his confidence back, and he's playing well. And this is a great time for him to show his ability. This is a great time for any of the youngsters coming through to show their versatility. And if you look at the players we've got, McAllister and Slobosly, there is versatility within all of them. They can play in numerous positions. This is what the new Klopp Gegenpressing 2.0 is about. This is about the rotation and bringing in the flexibility of players, playing certain players for certain and tactics against certain teams, and we have an opportunity there. And that's why you say before about with Rigo with his midfielder, you got to bear in mind we've lost 3 midfielders before we brought anyone in. So I'm expecting 3 midfielders regardless. I want that 3rd midfielder in because we've lost Stocks, we've lost Keita, and we've lost Milner. So we need 3. We need 3 bodies in for the 3 that have missed.
Or 2 healthy ones would do.
Well, the thing is, though, you look at the players that have gone in Keita and Chamberlain and the amount of games that they've missed through injury, and when you've replaced them with 2 quality players in McAllister and Slobosly who don't get injured at all, and primarily played 95, if not 98% of the games last season for the teams that they were playing for. That's the difference of what we're bringing in. That allows you to then to rotate. Bear in mind, we've got a 32-year-old Virgil van Dijk, and we've also got a 30-odd-year-old in Henderson as well that needs to be rotated. But this is what I mean. This is what I'm talking about. You've got to utilise the squad this season better than what we have done in the past. And this is a great opportunity. This is the only time that you'll probably see Klopp, as I've said, turn around to young players and say, you show me what you've got, like Conor Bradley did. You could be playing in Europe for us next season, guaranteed. Because that's what we should be doing. For me, anyway. But as I say, that's Curtis has got that in his locker. We can play him at times in a number 6. See how he does. Play him alongside Bajcetic away from home in Europe, and then put him on the bench, and then hopefully the good thing about Curtis Jones is he comes off the under-21s. He's still relatively young, and he's got his future at Liverpool. I'm not saying it's teetering that it's coming to an end, but he has got his confidence at the right time to show us what he is capable of, and what I've seen at certain times and glimpses at the academy when he was playing for them. But for me, it's in his locker. Go and do what you can do, what we all know you can do, mate.
Now, Stephen, I'm going to give you a question that's probably been put in the chat by Ahmed about 20 times, so you've probably seen it. Ahmed says, can we sell Costas for 20 million, Nat Phillips for 10 million, and if Inacio has a 35 million release clause, could we sign him?
I don't think Inacio is on the higher level. As much as I love him, it doesn't make sense business-wise to have a player with a release clause higher on the level of priority than players that don't have release clauses. If they wanted Inacio and he was higher up on it, and they didn't want the likes of Levi Colwill ahead of him, they'd have already paid the release clause. That's the way that I look at it. From a business point of view, I don't particularly think it makes a lot of sense to. Obviously, it's contradictory with Szoboszlai, but I think that was a deal that was there for a while, and Klopp wanted him, he went and got him. I seen earlier in the chat as well, somebody said that Liverpool have no more interest in Inacio, which, if that's the case, breaks my heart. But with regards to selling Costas and Nat Phillips, I think more than that go. I think you add Kelleher into that as well, unfortunately, as my own countryman, but he does deserve first team minutes in a Premier League team. He's that level of a goalkeeper. And I'd think we could get nearly 30 million for him. If the likes of Onana is going for 40, 50 million pound, I can't see why Kelleher can't go for 25 million, 30 with add-ons. So that's
55. I've seen some of Onana's mistakes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And it's something that we posed in our own little group as well, is which is going to happen first is what's the name of the gentleman that United signed as well, that's potent for getting red cards and sent off. I can't think of his name, but whether he was going to get sent off first or whether Onana was going to have an absolute howler and let a goal in, much to say from holding on to the ball too long. But I think selling the likes of Costas, because I don't think he's going to get the minutes if we're going to bring in a left-sided centre-back, along with having Robertson there. He deserves first-team minutes in a Premier League team as well, along with Nat Phillips. They all deserve first-team minutes, but you're playing behind some of the best players in the world at their position, so I don't particularly think they're going to get them. Much similar to the situation of Levi Colwill, because he wants first-team minutes, and I think he'll get more of them at Chelsea than he will at Liverpool, but I think that's down to the player then. With Inacio, his release clause, I think you're going to pay a release clause for somebody that's lower down in the totem pole of importance later on in the window, because there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of noise about him at the moment, with other teams being very much interested in him. So I think Liverpool might be one of few suitors for him, and I think he might be a diamond in the rough that we could pull out of the bag later in the window if other deals don't materialize for the likes of the homegrown problem and the non-homegrown players problem. So it'll really all depend on how we want to assess that situation. And if the likes of Costas Tsimikas goes, that's one non-homegrown slot opened up, meaning the Inacio window could open then very easily, purely because of that. But it'll all really depend. There's a lot of moving cogs and a lot of moving pieces with it.
Now, we're going to finish with one final question, and obviously it's going to be it's more going to be a statement from someone that's a big supporter of the channel, which is Jen. Jen says, let's face facts. We're not getting Thuram or Colwill. We will get Lavia. And that's probably what's going to happen. Does that feel like a pragmatic view as to what the probable outcome of this will be? Obviously, we wanted 4 signings. We'll probably end up with 3. We always end up with 1 less. And if you pay a little bit more, like Szoboszlai was more, then probably you end up cutting. There's always one role, isn't there, you end up cutting.
Yeah, I think it's, as for likely, I'm going to go with I don't know. Just maybe not.
You're all just fence sitters, aren't you?
I'm saying no. I will
LFC
no
fence room. That's
for
what
someone calling out people on the fence. I have seen no opinions from you with the hard. Yes, sir.
I'm hosting.
Okay. But to answer the question, I think it's one of those ones we've talked about in the past where FSG and Liverpool tend to blindside you. Like, it seems to be like you don't hear anything, and then all of a sudden, the Dominic Szoboszlai deal, like within 5 days, he's in the score. He's in the in the dressing room pictures, holding up the jersey, and that's not the first time. Like, that's a bit of a history, an ongoing pattern with Liverpool, where they pull players that you have no idea that we were interested in them, or they just get it done like that. And I think the one thing for me with Lavia is that we're not the only club interested. So I don't think FSG want to get into a bidding war, especially as he's 19 years old, 1 season really with Southampton in the Premier League. And I know he's got a lot of talent, but I don't want to be paying that much money. And same with Colwill. Like, I don't think we should be paying that much money for someone who's going to be an understudy. I think there's more, like, maybe center back, there's a little bit more justification, and the homegrown nature of the issue puts some more attraction on it. But I think that's, like, for me in the CDM role, I think Steven touched on Basecic's ideal role being, was it number 8? But he can be understudy under Fabinho. He's played it before. He played that primarily when he came in and absolutely bossed it. I think this is where FFG take the route of, do we have the cover that we need right now? And could we get away with it? And as much as Liverpool fans are just like, we need this center mid, we need this, I think it also comes to the part of business where it's like, you don't just buy someone because you need it. You buy the right person because at the right price. Like the Virgil van Dijk thing, I'll always go back to that, because we didn't get Van Dijk in the summer, and we could have easily bought someone else. Could have been like, well, we didn't end up getting the guy we wanted. Maybe we should get someone else. But FSG and Klopp were like, no, this is the guy. We're going to come back in January and get him. And we did, and ended up being one of the best purchases that got us over the Champions League and the Premier League title. I think that's where we're hitting right now. And going back again to Kevin Steven on what they said about Real Madrid, if the best player becomes available, or if that is worth waiting for, or other than getting someone like, hey, we need to fill a space. Like, let's get this guy, and then let's pay top dollar for this guy who might not even work out. I think that's rash business. And if we know anything about FSG, they're not doing that. So I'd say no.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And to give you one of my personal opinions, Drew, seeing as you think I'm avoiding it, I actually think we're going to go all out for Colwill, because I don't think there's enough centre-backs coming through. If you look at it all over the place, everyone seems to have a weakness of centre-backs. A bit like when Virgil van Dijk was in the market, there was no real strong centre-back partnerships out there. And I think a young British centre-back who wants to play for Liverpool is going to be rare and probably expensive, but if he can play for 10 years, something like that, he's not going to be Bellingham expensive. But if he plays for Chelsea all year and plays really well, he could very easily become Bellingham expensive. So I think we either move now or we never get him. Thank you very much for joining me today, Kev, Drew, Stephen. If you are new here, please like and subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow's stream is a special stream. I'm not going to ruin too much about it or anything like that, but make sure that you tune in tomorrow at 7:30 to catch that one. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you for all your questions. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.